Titan.
He's ruined it. um, Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. I am the founder and director of a company called Your D&I. We are a diversity and inclusion consultancy and the host of Diversity, the tea spilling D&I podcast. So we've been on hiatus probably for about a year and a half now and thought it was about time that we bring it back. And I decided to bring in someone to help me. So I have my bestie and just wonderful human being, Lee Reavill.
Hello.
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 Hello, hello. So this is going to be, I guess, like a different version of diversity. If you've listened before, it was kind of very serious, and obviously D&I is a very serious topic. However, we want to kind of bring a bit of a fun element into kind of the conversation, and as well as kind of tackle some really kind of hard topics. And I thought, what better person to kind of bring on is Lee because of the type of relationship that we have, and the type of friendship that we have, and I guess the banter, if we want to call it anything, that we have. So, um, Lee, do you want to tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Lee. I work for myself. I own an SEO well, SEO agency, do you want to call it that? I don't know. Called Planet Digital. I've been doing that for the past 3 years, worked in digital marketing for over 11 years. And I guess in the past couple of years, been more interested in mental health, diversity, inclusion, and that's where I met you about a year ago. So kind of been getting a little bit more involved with that, I guess. But with sort of with marketing still like at the forefront of it, but looking more at like inclusive marketing and mental health in general, also within like the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, and I can't believe it's been over a year. Like, I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and they were like, "Oh, how long have you known Lee for?" And I was like, "About a year," but it kind of feels like forever in a weird kind of in a good way and sometimes a bad way.
Oh, really?
I know, I
Um,
know.
no, it does. It feels a lot longer than a year. Um, yeah, it was like August, wasn't it, last year? So
Yeah,
over over a year now.
and we have our lovely friend M to blame for it, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, to blame for this monstrosity of a friendship.
I know, an absolute monstrosity of a friendship. So M reached out to me probably July last year, I think, and said, "Look, I have this friend who's interested in getting involved in D&I and kind of looking at mental health, and I thought you'd be a really good person to have a conversation with." And I was like, "Who, me?" Um, so I think we bumped into each other randomly at Nottingham Pride um, before we actually officially met, and then we went and grabbed some coffee and we had a big conversation. And I remember going straight in and be like, "I'm a hugger, by the way," and you were like, "Oh, okay," and gave this
Yeah, I
really
was the complete
reluctant
opposite.
hug.
It's like I don't like people touching me that I don't know. But you don't really give me much choice, to be fair.
I
So
just went really in for it, really in for it, and it's happened before as well. Where remember going to visit a client a couple of years ago, and I knew one of them really well. And she was like, "Oh, give me a hug." So I went and gave her a hug, and then her colleague, I went to give her a hug as well, and she stepped right back, and she was like, "Oh no, I don't hug people." And I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, that's cool, that's cool. Like that's fine." And yeah, I guess like when we first met, we just started talking. I guess all about D&I and kind of
yeah,
why you wanted to get into the space.
I think I reached out to you obviously through to kind of see what I could do and if it was possible to kind of like get within sort of D&I guess. But and then we ended up talking for like 4 hours, and I think we found out that we actually had a lot more in common
Yeah,
than just kind of me wanting to find out about D&I and how I can use sort of like lived in experience and stuff as well. And then we just ended up talking absolute rubbish as well and kind of laughing. And then I was like, oh crap, it's been 4 hours. I
I
should
know,
probably go now. So
I know. And then I reluctantly took you to the cricket the next day.
Yeah, you did, and then that was the start of our beautiful friendship.
A
Of
beautiful
it's like,
friendship.
why is this 6 foot gay taking me to the cricket? But
Yeah.
yeah, something I would never, even though living next to the cricket ground, I would never usually go to the cricket either. So
No, and to be honest, like I'm not a huge. I don't really understand cricket, to be honest. But um, a good friend of mine, Jamie, was doing some work with the 100, which was on, and asked me if I go and do like a mystery shop, and so I did, and I was able to kind of take a couple of people with me. So that's what we did, and I think yeah, we just had a good laugh that night. I think.
yeah, no, I think then after that, that's when I probably started meeting up with you like pretty much every week on a Friday.
Yeah,
Um, and you're probably one of the only friends that I speak to pretty much every day. So
every day,
yeah, every day.
all day, every day. Which yeah, it's bizarre. Like from going like to not knowing this person at all to then like having this person who's like your go-to person all within the space of a year, like it's wild.
Yeah, I think I mean, we've both spoken about it as well, how you have friendships, you can be friends with people for years and years, but then they kind of become, without naming any names, they kind of become like surface level friends, or what's the term? I want to say Mayweather friends. That isn't the term, is it? Fair weather friends.
Whether
Um, they're friends that you can have a drink with and you can have a laugh with, but would you turn to them for advice or to actually have a
yeah,
deep meaningful conversation? And I think as I've got older, kind of especially with my anxiety and my mental health, having those sort of friends where you can probably only count on one hand actually become more meaningful. So you can know someone for years and years, and then the fact that you can meet someone, know them for a year, and actually feel closer to them than what you have with friends that you've had, for a really long time. So
it's really true because I think when we met I had quite a lot of friends, and I know you take the piss sometimes and say I've got like lots of friends and
yeah,
stuff.
it's because you know a lot of people, but then I mean,
Yeah.
Ash, my partner Ash, like says the same to me, that like I have a lot of friends and know a lot of people, but I really don't feel that I do like at all. But yeah, I guess I used to always take the mick out of you saying that you seem to know everyone.
But I mean, I guess in this job, like part of, and like you know, as a business owner, part of like what you have to do is network and actually meet some people. And I've been quite fortunate, I think, over the last 4 years of doing this to meet some people that I would call a friend, I guess. But I guess at the start of this year, went on a journey and kind of started cutting out. I don't know why you're laughing. Started cutting out, like, not like badly cutting out people, but wanting to, I guess, look at the friends that I had and actually what did they bring to my life, which sounds like a really selfish thing because obviously friendship's supposed to be a two-way thing. But looking at the fact that a lot of people I had in my life were quite vacuous and had, I don't know, just a perception of what a gay friend looks like
Mhm.
and a perception of, I guess, who I was kind of putting out into the world as a person. So yeah, made a decision to get rid of a lot of people, and you were one that stuck because I think
Because I was
we
a new friend.
because you wouldn't stop messaging me. I think that's what it was. um, but no, I think it was like after the first like couple of weeks of us like spending time together, it was actually we did have a lot of very similar like experiences. I think we're very similarly aligned on our views and our ethics and things like that. And that's a very rare thing to come across. And I know we've spoken about it a lot, but it's a very rare thing to come across as a gay man as
Mm.
well. To later in life, because we're getting
Yeah.
on a little bit.
Well, you are. I'm not.
But to make new friends without any kind of expectation beyond that
Yeah.
has been a really
Yeah.
rare thing.
I think, yeah, especially as you get older, like making, if I'm being perfectly honest, the thought of meeting new people now, I'll try and go out my way to not do that.
Yeah, right.
If a friend wants to introduce me to their friends, I'm kind of like, I'm okay, thanks. I kind of I struggle enough to make effort with the friends that I've got, and I think a lot of people find that as they get older. So when you do just make a friendship where it's quite natural and like it just happens, and I think it's quite a rare thing to find as you get older. And I think
Yeah,
it's, but yeah, especially as a gay man, like I feel that I've never really had that many gay friends, or if I have, there's always been that kind of, like what you said, expectation or kind of stigma
yeah,
attached to. It's kind of like with a woman being friends with a man, that if they're both in relationships, it's kind of almost like, oh, well, is something going on there? And I think it's a
oh.
similar thing that happens with gay friendships as well. So yeah, I do feel like it's quite rare how weird, wonderful friendship.
And it is weird, but I kind of like how weird it is.
But it
Actually,
probably isn't weird. There's going to be like millions of, you know, gay men that are friends, but I feel that within people that I know and within sort of like our local, no, what would you even call it? With our friends and people that I know,
yeah.
I don't really feel that that happens very often.
No, it doesn't. And like we've come up against it, I guess, a little bit over like since our friendship because you remember at Christmas where we went out for drinks and we had
Mm.
someone who came and kind of met us, and it was someone that I used to know, well, I still know, but someone I used to work with, and she was like, "So, what's going on between you two?" And the two of us just kind of looked at each other as if to say, "Ugh, no thanks." And also, just because we're two gay guys who are like best friends doesn't mean that like there has to be something going on. And it's happened a few times. Like people are like, "Oh, like is
Yeah.
Lee like your bit on the side? Is Lee your boyfriend?" And all this. Guys like, no, Lee has a partner and he's in a very healthy relationship, and I'm good. Like I love him to bits, but not in that way, any way, shape, or form. Like no offense.
Yeah. Uh, None taken. I mean, you think that you look like Tom Hardy, but
I
um,
knew you were going to try and throw that in.
um, but no, but I think obviously the person that said it at Christmas didn't know me, so they didn't
Yeah,
know that I was in a long-term relationship, and um, I guess other people that do know me obviously probably wouldn't make that assumption.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it does happen, and obviously the fact that like my partner, you get on well, he's become one of your friends,
yep.
so think you probably prefer him to me, but he doesn't message you every
I
day. So,
I actually said that to him this morning,
um,
so
but he's crap at replying anyway. So even if you
he
did
is.
message him every day, he wouldn't reply to you.
That's very true.
But yeah, it's true. I think there's still that kind of like what you said, the whole like, oh well, what's. I think it's because we kind of bounce off each other as well. We have like a lot of how you said it like earlier, like banter, and even though I
Yeah,
hate that word, but yeah, I think it's when it's the same with like other friendships that I have, like with female friends, where if we have that kind of constantly laughing and joking, that if somebody else is there, they kind of feel like a third wheel, even though you're just
yeah,
friends. Because we've had that, like at Christmas when I came to yours, and like I kind of felt almost like at the time um, that Ash and he who should not be named felt probably a little bit left out because we were just laughing and joking. But
yeah.
not that we didn't include them, but I think yeah, you can have that with friendships where if you just have that level of um I don't even know what you would call it. What would you just enjoy being around each other and
Yeah,
laughing and kind of having inside jokes, but for other people it can become a little bit uncomfortable. I get that. I think it's
yeah. It is like it can be uncomfortable for other people. And I think I was talking to one of my friends the other day there, one of my many friends,
oh,
um,
one of your many, many friends.
many, many friends.
Not your best friend though.
Not your best, not my best friend, no. And it was about like friendships. It was my brother actually the other day. It was about like friendships and stuff. And actually, what I notice the older I get with a lot of relationships is like people in relationships feel like they have to be friends with their partner's friend. Like,
Mm,
and actually, I feel like sometimes you need that separation because sometimes you want to bitch about your partner to your
mm,
friend and actually don't want them involved in that conversation, or you just want to hang around with like your best friend and your partner not to be there. Like, and I think that's really important because otherwise you end up with kind of extreme codependency, and obviously codependency is fine, but like I feel like as people, you also still need to be an individual.
Yeah, you still need like your own identity, and I think
Yeah,
that if your partner is making you feel guilty for seeing friends on your own, whether they be the same sex or opposite sex,
yeah,
like I think that that's well, it's not particularly healthy, and you still need like your own identity. You still, even if you want time to yourself, to go for a
yeah,
coffee, to read a book, to listen to a podcast, to watch a film, whatever it may be. So yeah, I completely get. Obviously, it's always beneficial if you actually do get on with your partner's friends,
of course,
but I think you have to have your own friendships as well, and
definitely.
have time with those people. And luckily, how you said, like people making assumptions and stuff. Luckily, my partner is. I mean, he also knows that you don't look like Tom Hardy,
Rude.
so no threat.
Maybe we need to do a poll or something as part of this because I've been told over the last couple of weeks by one person that I look like Niall Horan, and I don't get that one. I don't understand that one at all.
Mm.
Mm. And
Thing
then
is, all the people that you've said, so I'm gonna let you finish and say who else you supposedly look like, but all the people that supposedly you look like,
mm.
you probably could look like them. You just look like an aging version of each of them.
Rude. I mean, Tom Hardy's older than me.
Is he?
Yeah,
How
like
old is he?
much older than me.
Yeah, well, he obviously has good genes.
Obviously, I thought I was doing all right, but maybe I do need to go get Botox now. Uh, so yeah, Tom Hardy was that one, and Jeremy Renner, which I've actually had a couple of times before. I think it might be the nose. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe like mix all three of them together, and you get you. Maybe.
I'm okay with that. I'm kind of happy with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um. Anyway, so obviously the purpose of how we met was because you wanted to come into the D&I space and specifically LGBTQIA plus and looking at mental health as well. So do you want to explain a little bit more about that and kind of why that was something that you kind of wanted to look at?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm probably, I'm way more open about it than what I used to be, but about like my own anxiety, and I think like it took me quite a long time to come to terms with not only having anxiety, but then actually treating it and probably looking back at like the root cause of it and kind of when I was younger and things like that. And I don't think necessarily that being gay contributed to my anxiety completely, but I do think that looking more into it and looking at kind of just seeing things in the media, seeing things that friends have posted, things that they'd said and whatever, who are part of the LGBTQ community, made me look into it more and
Mm,
kind of look at the mental health aspect of it, and especially, um, kind of more within like the trans community. That mental health is huge. That like
mm,
suicide rates are huge, and I felt that there's not really a bigger, sort of a wider conversation about mental health within the LGBTQ community. If you think about coming out, the fact that even now, as an older man, I still come out, like just as you do as well. Um, and that's from, when you meet new people and you kind of introduce your partner, or someone presumes that you're straight. And even things like that can have sort of an effect or impact
mhm.
on the way that you identify, on your mental health. Um, and I think it's something that people don't really speak about or talk about that much, because it's kind of like, well, you've already come out, you came out when you were 17, why should it be an issue now? Which it's not. I'm very happy talking about my sexuality, but it is something. I think that's why I wanted to look more at it and think, okay, what are my own lived in experiences, and how can I help other people with that? Can I have conversations? And as there's more of a spotlight on mental health in general, not just LGBTQ mental health, but in general, it's kind of, are there other things like other in different communities, and are people actually speaking about it? And then kind of, I guess, going a little bit more granular. What if you're black, gay, and have anxiety?
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's that sort of thing that not only interests me, but I feel really passionate about. I can't be a spokesperson for, you know, completely for those people because I'm not that, but I can at least listen, understand, and try and champion where I possibly can.
Yeah, and I think like we've spoke about this before, like with mental health in the past, and like obviously there's some amazing organisations out there that do some great work, but it is kind of one size fits all when it comes to mental health support. And actually, there's very few organisations that are out there that look at the impact of mental health on being a gay man, or being trans, or being bisexual, whatever it might be, or being a black person, or whatever it might be. Like, and it's more work needs to be done around that. And actually, like you've just said, they're looking at the intersectional piece as well. Like, we're more than just kind of what we look like. We're more than just face value. We're all made up of many, many different layers and many, many different things. So it's important that actually that needs to be addressed as well, because you could be a woman who's also a mother but also suffer with mental health, but also be a lesbian and also perhaps have a disability. All those things are impacting your mental health on a daily basis. It's not just a, well, here's a resource for mindfulness. It's actually, what are the resources that are going to support all aspects of that intersectional piece, that makes you up. And I just don't feel like enough work's being done around that right now.
Yeah, it's a really like good point, and it's kind of like I think when I think of like the trans community, I think if someone has transitioned from male to female, female to male, and they have kids, and that kind
Mm.
of then do their kids then refer to them as mum or dad or continue referring to them as they always have?
Yeah.
But if you also think of the mental health of that person as well, when you look at not just only transitioning, but then trying to think, okay, so I've always identified as dad to my kids, but now I kind of do I continue identifying as dad, even though technically I feel more like mum, but they have a mum or whatever it may be. And I don't know, there might be conversations happening about that, but I feel is there enough conversations happening about that? And it's yeah, I obviously I don't know what it feels like to go through that, but I can
Yeah.
imagine it being incredibly difficult, and having an impact on your mental health, even if you don't have mental health issues or you haven't really sort of experienced them before, and maybe it's something as you get older and you're going through sort of more life experiences,
Yeah.
you start to realize that it does impact you.
And I think obviously we talk about the trans community as well. There's the conversation around sexuality too, because actually transitioning from say male to female, you still find the gender you've always found attractive, or the
Mm,
sex that you find attractive. So like there's that transition as well, where you may have always been identified as a straight male up until a certain point, then transition, and then actually that transition from straight male to lesbian, or to bisexual, there's that kind of impact that that's going to have as well, which are kind of something mentally you have to get round, and have
mm.
to talk about. um, and it's mad that like in 2024 still, that we're still seeing so many kind of high rates of homophobic attacks and transphobic attacks and things like that on the streets, which obviously creates anxiety amongst people.
Mm.
Like walking through what's supposed to be a safe space, whether it's in Soho or Manchester or wherever it might be, and that kind of anxiety that comes along with. Well, actually, I saw in the news a couple of weeks ago that like someone was attacked in the middle of Soho, or someone was attacked in Clapham
Mm.
outside a gay bar. Like these are all things that we now have to start thinking about. When I usually run a workshop, I'll always do kind of a first impressions exercise, and I'm like 6'4", like a big bugger, and kind of perhaps not the type of person you'd expect to rock up to do a D&I workshop, and I'll get people to judge me based on first impressions, and the answers and kind of what they throw out are usually kind of the same. But then when I disclose my sexuality, people are like, well, actually, why is that important? And then we talk about the fact that actually there's over 60 countries in the world that we can't visit potentially because we could go to jail or we could get abused,
Mm.
whatever it might be, or holding your partner's hand down the street. This is still something as a 39-year-old I've never been able to get to grips with,
Mm.
is being comfortable to hold someone's hand walking down the street, which I should be comfortable to do it. If I'm with that person and I love that person and want to be with that person, there should be nothing that should stop me from doing that. However, we have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to think about, actually, could we get beaten up for this? Are we going to get abuse for this? And all that kind of thing. And then that impacts your anxiety and your mental health as well.
Yeah, it does, and I think it's such a strange one because I feel like when I was younger, seeing two men or two women holding hands walking down the street, there probably was a lot more people looking or saying insults or whatever it may be than what
Yeah,
there is now. I still also don't feel comfortable with holding my partner's hand walking down the street.
yeah,
If I'm in an environment that is primarily, LGBTQ, um, I probably feel a little bit more comfortable.
yeah,
But even then, I think sometimes there's within the community, there can sometimes also be that kind of I don't know what it like judgment or
yeah,
criticism or whatever, and then your anxiety gets heightened even more because I've had it where some people think when they meet me they don't presume that I am gay. I've had people where they think that I am or whatever it may be, but I think then it makes you think more about your own identity and
yeah,
kind of I'm not just a gay man. Like going into intersectionality, like you was talking about, there's loads of other things that make me me. But when I'm in a gay bar, which I don't really go to that
yeah.
often, I don't feel that comfortable because sometimes there is that sort of judgment of, am I gay enough? Am I not gay enough? Um,
How you look as well. Like
yeah,
that's
so and that also heightens anxiety because you don't it's an environment where you should feel comfortable in.
yeah.
Um, but actually I don't feel that comfortable in those environments sometimes. So it's yeah, I've kind of lost my train of thought. But
No,
yeah.
I think like what you've said is valid. Like going into like a gay bar, and like I remember the first gay bars I used to go into like many moons ago, and
When dinosaurs roamed and
yeah, right, exactly. And the segregation that existed within these bars was unreal. Like the bears would hang around with the bears, the twinks would hang around with the twinks, and like if you were to cross that line, then you'd be shunned by your own community. But it still happens now. Like when I've been into bars in London, and I'm not going to name and shame, but like I've been asked to leave because I don't look like the type of person that they want to have in that bar. Um, because I'm dressed a certain way or because I'm built a certain way or whatever it might be. And that is anxiety inducing. And that's like, well, where do I belong? Like, when we look at the LGBT plus community and we kind of look at kind of, we always talk about inclusion, we'd always talk about kind of celebrating and commemorating pride and all that kind of thing. These are all really important things. But sometimes inside our own community, it's very segregated. It's not the most inclusive because you have to sometimes look a certain way or act a certain way, or you're not gay enough, or you're too gay, and all these different kind of things. And then that starts to mess with your head as well, because then what I found in the past is I started to play up my gayness because I was like, well, this is the only way I'm going to get accepted within my
Mm.
community or by women sometimes as well, and kind of female friends. Is like, oh, I have to act a certain way, be like, yes, queen, and all this kind of thing. And it just doesn't come natural. As you can tell, it doesn't come naturally at all. Like, but that's like, people should just be encouraged to be who they want to be and act the way they want to act and go for a drink wherever they want to go
Mm.
and drink. And it's going out in bars and stuff like that. I mean, I spend a lot of time in London and kind of going out in Soho. Like it is, there's only certain places I go because that fear of kind of being looked at differently or being judged differently just because of
Mm.
how I look.
I mean, there's not really that much of a gay even like gay bars or gay sort of community within Nottingham anymore
Yeah,
anyway. Even when there were, like I don't know, there was still never really that comfortability of, is that a word?
it
Comfortability?
is now.
Comfortable? Um, I'd have straight friends that would really want to go to gay bars, probably more than what I would want to.
Yeah,
I'd be quite happy just going to Rock City and feeling kind of, that I didn't have to act a certain way or
yeah,
be a certain way. And but then it kind of contradicts the whole how I just said I don't feel comfortable holding a partner's hand in a gay bar. I can do that. I can,
yeah,
but it's a weird thing, and it does mess with your identity because also when people have said to me in the past, like, "Oh, I would have never thought that you were gay," it it's such a strange thing for someone to say because it also can come across a bit insulting because it's kind of what does gay even look like?
Right, exactly.
But then it goes back to messing with your own identity because I've often done it where I don't know if I've worn something a little bit different to what I normally would. I'm kind of questioning, does that make me look a certain way, or
Yeah.
does it make me look gay, or whatever gay I may or may not be? Um, but yeah, I think even though we progressed a hell of a lot, there's still certain things that people say where we don't actually think before we speak. So it's the same as if someone was to say to someone who is trans, asking them personal questions. But it's a similar thing of you don't know how it's going to impact or affect that person.
Yeah, and I think sometimes because you are from like a certain demographic or a certain group, that people feel like they have the right to ask certain questions. Like I've spoken about in the past, where I had a boss who used to ask about my sex life, and she used to ask about like who I was dating, who I was sleeping with, like all these kind of really
Mm.
intrusive questions without asking my permission first of all if it was okay to talk about that. And like you're defining someone purely on their sexuality, when actually, yes, I'm a gay man, but it's a very small part of who I am. Like I'm a lot of other things. Like
Mm.
I'm. I was going to say I'm a good friend, but then I was scared you were going to judge me there. Like,
Apparently, you're a Tom Hardy lookalike. So,
well, Tom Hardy looks like as well, yeah, apparently. But like, I like death metal music and like heavy
mm,
like rock and all this kind of thing, and all these things that aren't necessarily linked to being gay, but no one sees that when you tell them that you're gay for the first time. Like, it's like, oh, well, you must love shopping, and like all these
mm.
stereotypes still get fired at you. And I'm like, well, I do like shopping, but only like in a certain high street store that I'm obsessed with. Um, but that's about it. Like, I don't
You're
really
probably the
like
only person that's keep. No, actually, it has got more popular. But I was going to say you're probably the only person that really keeps them in business.
quite possibly the way I've gone this year, yeah. But like music as well. Yes, I like pop music, but I don't like your typical stereotypical like gay music, whatever it might be.
Mm.
Or like movies. Sometimes I don't want to watch like a sad dark movie about like the gay scene and all this kind of thing. Like I want to watch like a gritty horror. I want to watch like I don't know, like something else. Like it doesn't always have to be linked to being part of that community. Like your life doesn't have to revolve around it. Like, certainly mine's doesn't anyway. And like for some people,
Mm.
obviously that works and that's who they are. But for me, like it's not a defining part of who I am as a person.
Yeah. I think there's probably also that it's strange. It's almost like there's an expectation to behave a certain way, and that can happen within the community as well, like we spoke about.
Yeah,
But
I was really hoping you were going to go Yas Queen there, but you didn't.
no, you will not find me doing a Yas Queen. Um, but yeah, it's a straight. But I have had in the past where I've been introduced to a friend's friend, and they got excited and said, "I've always wanted a gay friend because I want to go shopping with them." And I just said to them, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be that person." It's like
As
I'll be
someone
your
who's gone
friend,
shopping with you as well, you're
but
definitely not that person.
I was like, I'll be your friend. Well, if we get on, I will be your friend,
Yeah.
but I'm not. I'm not going to live up to your expectations or kind of fantasy of having this person that's going to, yeah, be a certain way. You're,
Yeah, it's interesting. And I saw something slightly off topic, but I saw something the other day that on LinkedIn which really made me think. And like it was someone within the LGBT plus community who had wrote something about like relationships and wrote the phrase straight passing relationship, and it really
okay.
it didn't sit right with me. And I don't know if I'm just thinking too much about it, but if someone had said to a member of the LGBT plus community, say a gay guy, for instance, that you were in a gay passing relationship, that person would have had something to say about it.
Mm.
But sometimes I feel like we think things like that can fly because obviously the LGBT plus community, we've been oppressed for so long and kind of we've been stereotyped and discriminated against for so long. But does that mean that we can have the right to then put down the straight community and straight relationships and things? And it just like
Mm.
it really left like a not a very good feeling. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
No, I think that I completely agree. I think that I mean, I'm not going to kind of get into a wider conversation about other sort of um yeah, what's the word? Kind of double standards and
Yeah,
things within communities. But it does always really grind my gears because I feel that if you're championing one thing in kind of segregation or whatever, then it needs to be the same for everyone.
yeah,
It needs to be the fact that you need to be accepted, and that yeah, I think just because we as a community have been oppressed doesn't mean that you then have the right to kind of put down other
exactly.
communities just because they are uh what's the word? I don't know,
Privilege.
normal, whatever it may be, like whatever
Yeah,
you want to call it. Um, but yeah, privileged, or I don't even really like that word, like towards straight. It's almost it's kind of that thing of like pitting people against each other, and
yeah.
it's such a strange thing. But no, I completely agree that why would you? Yeah, I don't know why would you do that.
And it's just on such a big platform as well. And this person had quite a hefty following too. And it just kind of, yeah, like for me, like in the whole reason why I started Your D&I was to make sure inclusion's for everyone. And that's not just people of color, those with disabilities, the LGBT plus community. Like, it's talking about age and ageism. It's talking about actually straight people and like those communities because they all have their shit as well. Like, like they have things that they come up against too. Like, so inclusions for everybody. It's not just like that sounds really like it should be on like one of those signs in your mum's kitchen, like inclusions for all. But it is because like there's been cases one over the last kind of 10 years where there was one guy in particular who was straight who was called like gay and faggot and all this kind of stuff for like in football. And then he went to his boss and like said, "Look, I'm not very happy about this." His boss was like, "Oh, it's just banter. It's fine. Like they're just having a laugh." And he was like, "No, no, like I don't accept that." So he took his employer to court and he won like £40,000.
Mm.
Like, so we need to be mindful of like that. Actually, our language does matter and it can have a big impact, regardless of what community you're in. And straight people in that community, they also deserve those kind of rights and kind of and to react in a certain way as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also you can't kind of expect, not just saying the straight community, but like you can't expect people to kind of be accepting of you and hear what you have to say
Yeah.
if you're not going to do the same as well. Like you just said, there's still things that they would have come across and still challenges that they have to face. And yes, discrimination may not be quite as common as what it is within other communities. Um, but it's still there. Like it's still like if you look at like race and you look at gender equality, whatever it may be, like there's still other challenges. So I think yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, because we're assuming as well that they don't have family members as part of those communities and that have been impacted and affected by certain things. So yeah, I feel like people need to be mindful. And like LinkedIn at the moment isn't my favorite place anyway. I think when it comes to DNI, but um, if you've got a platform and you're trying to use it for change and for good, just I guess be mindful that your words and your actions can have quite a severe impact.
Yeah, and I think like word of the day, intersectionality.
Hey,
Um, but how we spec you can be straight and you can be a straight woman and you may be I don't know quite butch presenting or you could be really camp and or whatever it may be. You still may have that um discrimination against you that people think that you are a certain way or whatever. So
yeah,
I think like it doesn't mean so no, it doesn't mean anything. Like you can be who you want to be. Like if you want to be a straight man who wears makeup and says "Yes, Queen," there you go, I did it for you.
yeah,
Um, then that's absolutely fine. Like it,
yeah,
what does it matter? Like it in
exactly.
the, so yeah, it's people just need to be kind.
And just respect. That's like I talk about it all the time. If we could all just respect each other, the world would be a much, much better place. Like you don't have to always get it, but if you just respect someone, then you know
But
half battle.
asking if people are comfortable to talk about things as well. Um, my mum is like in her 70s, and like she always uses the excuse of course, I'm accepting I have a gay son.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, but you like, it's
does
not like you
she?
made me gay. Like, yeah, and my brother. No, uh, yeah, I've lost my train of thought again. But yeah, it's kind of that. But then she will ask me a lot more questions now. She'll ask about like the trans community. She'll ask about race and the things that don't necessarily, I don't identify with them in terms of I'm not part of that community,
Yeah,
but doing like that educational kind of speaking to her about it and kind of making her a little bit more aware of it. And I think, once again, not to kind of stereotype the older generation, but I do think because of that kind of sometimes being quite narrow-minded and not looking at the bigger picture. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone,
yeah,
but yeah, just like if you're not sure about something and you want to know about it, then go and read about it. Go and listen to a podcast. There's plenty of things out there, plenty of resources. Or go and speak to someone about it and just say, "Are you comfortable for me to ask you this? Like,
yeah.
I'd like to know more about it so that I get pronouns correct and I don't offend you and whatever it may be." So,
Definitely. And like this is the thing, like we live in a world now where information's literally at our fingertips. And this excuse of like, well, I'm too old or I'm this, that, and the other. Like, I just don't think that really washes. Like, you can still access information, you can still ask questions, you can still do all these things. It's interesting as well. I saw, like, I don't watch Big Brother, but I saw an advert.
mm,
In fact, maybe it was a TikTok earlier, of someone who was going into Big Brother, and it was a guy who was 28. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I don't believe in this woke stuff and all that kind of thing, like
mm.
pronouns, it's all just nonsense and all that kind of thing." And I was really surprised that like Channel 4's given someone like that a platform. Is it on Channel 4? What's it on now?
It's on ITV
Oh,
now.
ITV. Well, I mean, well, maybe them, but like the fact they've been given that sort of platform,
Mm,
obviously they put someone like that in to rile people up because it's going to get people talking, um,
mm,
which I actually think is quite sad because
mm.
actually it's potentially going to like invoke more hate towards a certain community or kind of more confusion towards a certain community. Um, yeah, I just thought it was like a really poor choice, but that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, I think how you just said as well that I think saying that you're a certain way, like you're a certain age or whatever it may be, so you're stuck in your ways or whatever. If I think you've said it before, like if you can learn to use technology, if you can learn to use a smartphone,
Yeah,
then you can learn pronouns, you can ask questions. Like I think it's not that case of you shouldn't use ignorance as an excuse, that you should just
no,
that it's fine. You can still go and watch things. It's not an excuse to be a dick about something. And so I think, yeah, it's just go and do your research.
exactly, exactly. So I guess obviously, as the podcast is called Diversity, and it's all about
Mm.
spilling the tea on different aspects of D&I. But obviously, tea is a big focus on the podcast, and I know you're a coffee drinker, you're a big coffee drinker,
I
but
I do actually have a cup of tea with me right now.
you do. So what is your tea of choice today?
It's just bog standard Yorkshire tea.
Just
Other tea
Yorkshire.
brands are available, um,
I love
but
how
not
you
as
say that
good.
as if we're sponsored, but
Yeah, I mean, it would be Yorkshire Gold would be my preference,
okay, okay.
but no, Earl Grey is always my go-to if it's tea. I know I mean, you don't have a sophisticated palate. That's why you don't like coffee.
Apparently
Um,
not.
but you're a kind of like jam roly-poly tea and
No.
like
No, like
iron brew tea.
I mean, are we stereotyping here, Lee? Is that what we're doing after what we've just spoken about? No, I like a loose leaf tea. I like a flavored tea. Bird and blend. If you ever listen to this, like I love your chocolate digestive tea. Um, but I do like a Tetley. I'm not gonna lie, I do like a
No,
Tetley.
really.
I do, yeah.
I'd say
Actually,
no offense to Tetley, if Tetley are listening.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd say it's one of the worst.
Okay. I mean, Scottish blend as well. That's also very
I
nice.
don't know. Ever had Scottish blend?
When you come up in November, like I'll buy you some Scottish.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
Although I did go to make a cup of tea before the start of this, and as I poured the milk in, I noticed it was out of date. So actually, I don't
Mm.
have a cup of tea, but I have had 2 cups of tea this morning. So I guess that's fair. And just
I had
whilst we're on the topic of what Lee just said about that I don't have a sophisticated palate, the first time Lee took me to a certain coffee shop in Nottingham, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this coffee. It's got hints of banana and all this kind of thing." And I was like, "Why do I want my coffee to taste like banana?" It did have hints of banana, but it was also in like a thimble as well.
It's what
So
you get for like for good coffee. Like you spend like £1,000
exactly,
on a thimble of coffee.
exactly.
But it tastes good. See, I had 2 cups of coffee before this, and then I was like, I should probably make a cup of tea.
Wow,
Um,
2 cups of
so
coffee is well for you. That's not too bad. That's pretty good going.
no, but it was before like midday. Although this is not, it's still normal tea, not decaf.
Yeah,
But I feel like tea doesn't touch the sides as much as what coffee does, even though you say that it has more caffeine in it. But
it
I don't
is.
believe you.
It
So
is. It definitely is. But also, if there's any coffee brands out there that want to sponsor us too, like we won't discriminate. Like we're here for it.
you want to send me free coffee?
I know. Effies, if you're listening, they also do a banging brown sugar cookie as well, um,
Yeah,
which I do miss now that I'm not there anymore. But never mind.
they've got quite a lot of new pastries and stuff recently, and I keep on going in thinking, oh, that looks really good. But the cookie, ugh, if I don't have that cookie, I think about it. So
I mean, I still think about it. Like ever since the first one I had, I still think about it to this day. So I guess because obviously tea's going to be a theme throughout this, and Lee's going to be joining me on every single episode moving forward. Um, if people can tell us what their tea recommendations are, and I guess we can organise to get some of this tea, and then we can try it whilst we're recording. I think that could be quite an interesting little segment that we'll have as well.
we're not going to discriminate. So if you want to send coffee,
Coffee's also fine as well. Coffee's also fine. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, whatever your drink recommendations are, let us know, and we will try them on future episodes. Some of the episodes that we're going to be doing in the future. So we're going to have Joe Major, Ben the Pfeiffer Key, Katie Neves, and Chikere Ibokwe coming on as the Disruptive Collective, which is something we've kind of done in the past. Kind of a group of D&I professionals coming together to kind of really make some real change. We're going to have an episode with them, which we'll be recording in the next couple of weeks. And we'll also be looking at things like grief, intersectionality, gender equality. But if there's any other topics that anyone's interested in us talking about, then let us know. And we'll be more than happy to spill the tea on them as well. But thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you next time.
thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.